There's a story told of two brothers that were biking one day, and as they biked through the church parking lot, they noticed that one of the older parishioners had dropped her purse. They went quickly to pick it up and tried to catch her, but she went off too quickly. The boys opened up the purse and saw that it had her name and address, and they saw that there was $10 in the wallet. The younger brother looked up to his big brother and said, "You know that we have to return it. It's the right thing to do." And the older brother looked at him and said, "Yes, you're right. But maybe on our way to drop off her wallet, we can stop at the store and exchange the $10 for 10 $1 bills. So when we give to her her wallet back, she will be filled with a sense of joy and give us a reward." Even at a young age, these young boys knew how to act in a shrewd manner. And because they were able to act in a shrewd manner, they saw not just the opportunities in the immediacy of the moment, but that they were able to see the bigger picture. And in many ways, as we hear tonight's gospel parable from St. Luke, we also hear about another individual who is commended because he acted shrewdly. On first hearing this gospel parable from St. Luke, it seems to be a bit strange to us of why Jesus would tell this parable, why he would raise up this so-called dishonest manager as a model for his disciples then and still us today to follow. But if we reflect more upon the parable, we see what is at the heart of Jesus' message. We hear that the manager is summoned by the owner, and he is called into question about his accounting practices. And the manager recognizes that he is in trouble. He recognizes that his days of employment are short, and he realizes that he's too old to get another job, and he's too proud to be able to beg. And so he devises a plan in which he will try to win the esteem of some of the people that dealt with the rich owner. And so we hear he calls them in one by one. To the one that owed 100 jugs of oil, he cuts it down to 50. To the one that owed 100 barrels of wheat, he takes it down to 80. He was in fact not cheating his owner. He was in fact lowering his commission, his take on it. And why would he do so? Because he was able to see the bigger picture. He was able to recognize that with a little bit of short-term pain, losing out on that money, he might have longer-term gain, that after he was no longer employed, others would take care of him. They would look favorably on him. They would provide for him. And so he was able to act in a shrewd manner at that moment. And this is why Jesus raises him up as an example for his disciples then and us today, to be able to see more than what is before us and to recognize that we are in it for the long run, for the big picture. And yet so often that happens in our day and age, and sometimes in our own lives, is that we only see the present moment. And because we're so used to things happening in an instant, because we are so often welcoming a sense of self-gratification, we are unwilling to have a sense of short-term pain for longer-term gain. And this not only applies in the midst of the daily struggles of life, but moreover, it applies to eternal life. And this is at the heart of what Jesus is speaking about. He is inviting his disciples then and us today to be able to be prepared for that ultimate accounting, not before the rich owner like the manager, but the accounting that each and every one of us will have to give at the end of our earthly lifetime or at the end of the world, whenever it happens. We know that at the end of our lifetime, each and every one of us will individually and personally have to face God and give an accounting of how it is that we lived our lives, how it is that we lived our faith, how it is that we lived our discipleship. And therefore, Jesus urges his followers to be ready and prepared for that moment not only of judgment, but accountability. And therefore, he urges them to use the time that they have in the here and now, regardless of how long or short it might be, to be able to order their life and to be able to recognize that there is more than meets the eye, and that there is more to self-gratification and the instant culture and the day and age that we live in. Certainly, at the heart of our first reading today from the book of Amos, we hear the sacred author condemning the people of his day and age because they simply were living in the present moment. They could not wait until certain feast days were over so they could go back to the marketplace and sell their goods. They were waiting for the moment of the Sabbath to be over so they could resume their business. And we hear that their business practices were not ethical or moral, taking advantage of those that were vulnerable. And as such, they are reminded that there will be a moment of judgment and condemnation for them that do not use wisely what God has given to them. But sadly, at this moment, the people of Israel were more concerned about padding their pockets and having a comfortable life in that moment than looking at the bigger picture and looking at eternity. And so both the prophet Amos as well as Jesus tonight invite us not to make that same mistake, but to be able to recognize how it is that we must prepare for that moment of accountability and judgment, not to frighten us or to scare us, but so that we will be ready and prepared. How is it then that you and I prepare ourselves for eternity? How is it that we prepare for that moment of accountability? It is by being able to live day by day as disciples of Jesus, recognizing that at times we may have to experience that short-term pain in order to be able to have that long-term gain. It may mean at times that we cannot do things with our family and friends because we need to come to church on Saturday night or Sunday morning. It may mean that at times we have to be able to speak out against some of the difficult truths that are in our society day in and day out, and know that we will be rubbing shoulders against others who do not share in our belief in the gospel and its good news. It means that at times we may not be able to always pursue every one of our hobbies and interests because we need to be able to roll up our sleeves and to serve those that are in need. But if we are able to live in the present moment, living the gift of our baptism and discipleship day by day, then we will be readying ourselves and preparing ourselves for that moment of judgment and accountability. But as we have often reflected before, we recognize that to be holy, to be saintly, to be prepared does not mean that we have to do extraordinary or heroic things. But moreover, it simply means by ensuring that our spiritual lives are in order. We have been reminded by Jesus that the greatest of the commandments is to love the Lord our God with all of our mind, with all of our heart, with all of our soul. And that if we keep God at the center and the heart of our lives each and every moment, each and every day, not only will we be readying ourselves for that moment of judgment and accountability, but then all of the other good things of our life, our family, our friends, our careers, our hobbies and interests, even our possessions and our wealth will find its proper place in our hearts and our lives. But when we allow our family or our friends, when we allow our career or our possessions to take hold of us, then we lose that sense of focus. We lose that sense of balance. And so to be able to ready ourselves both for this world and the world to come means to be able to keep God at the center and the heart of our lives. It means that we must foster our spiritual lives by daily prayer, by using the sacraments, especially that of Eucharist and reconciliation, by nurturing our spiritual lives, by reading the scriptures, by reading the lives of the saints, and then to be able to do the spiritual and corporal works of mercy. As we are able to come into that spiritual routine day by day, month by month, year by year, then we are keeping our gaze on God and keeping him at the center of our lives, so that when that moment of judgment and accountability comes, we will not be found ill-prepared or taken by surprise, but instead we will have acted shrewdly and wisely, so that we can hear those beautiful words of God, "Well done, good and faithful servant. Come and inherit the kingdom prepared for you for all time."